U.S. history here. We are moving to the next unit, kind of the third unit. The first unit, which we really didn't spend a ton of time on, was the Constitution and the Founding Fathers and the Declaration, not in that order. And then the second unit was America in transition. It's also called kind of westward expansion. And we talked about getting the new settlers coming in, immigrants coming in off of the East Coast and moving west of the Mississippi River and settling the Louisiana Purchase and Homestead Act, free land, gold and silver. Just a lot of motives to go west, the removal of Native Americans from their land, the ending of the Plains Indians, and of course the big one, which was the railroads, carrying people and products at a very fast rate west, exploding our country, and moving us into this chapter, or this unit, the third unit, which we're going to call Industrialism. Keyword, industry, industrialism. And before I get into industrialism in today's video lecture, I just want to remind you guys about two key concepts that our country is kind of founded on when it comes to economics and doing business. And the first one I mentioned to you guys when I mentioned Alexis de Tocqueville to you, one of our founding fathers. One of his beliefs was laissez-faire, a French word, laissez-faire, two words, which means leave it alone. And what that means is leave our businesses alone when it comes to the government putting their hand in our cookie jar. And so a person who believes in laissez-faire is probably a business owner, because the business owner doesn't want the United States government meddling in, let's say, Chick-fil-A's business. If you're a business owner that owns Chick-fil-A, or if you own your own lemonade stand, you want to sell your lemonade for whatever amount that you want to sell it for, and you don't need the government telling you how to sell it and how much to sell it for. That's laissez-faire, a very key concept in the American economy. Number two is social Darwinism. Now, you've been taught Darwinism in science years ago. Darwinism is, survival of the fittest is exactly what it is. It is the tree that makes it in the forest versus the tree that doesn't make it in the forest. Maybe the tree that made it is the one that had more sunlight. Well, we need to take Darwinism and add the word social. So you get the word social Darwinism, which takes the concepts of the scientific theory of Darwin and then applies them to economics and businesses in America. And so social Darwinism would not be a tree in a forest, but rather it would be why this grocery store makes it, but this grocery store goes out of business. Or why this lemonade stand makes it, and this lemonade stand goes bankrupt. Or why this gas station or convenience store is able to make it, and this convenience store doesn't make it. That's social Darwinism, and that's where you have to start looking at what caused this one to succeed and what caused this one not to succeed. And so those are key concepts as we move into industrialization, because the industrial movement is all about money. And that's a lot of good, and it has some bad in there too, because when you start talking about money, you definitely start talking about corruptness. And so with that being said, Mark Twain, we've all heard of Mark Twain, a famous author, writer, who deemed this whole test that you're going to take, this next unit that we're studying called industrialism, he called it the Gilded Age, Gilded. And the Gilded Age, as he called it, basically means, literally the Gilded Age, gilded means, he meant it to be all the sparkle and all the glistening that you see, all the good stuff that's all nice. Underneath that, there's a lot of corruption and there's a lot of darkness. And so Mark Twain, actually a lot of his books write about that, from racism to corrupt money, stealing money, taking money that's not yours, corrupt businesses that exploit their labor, exploit the people that are working for them at the hand of making millions. And so that's what Mark Twain calls this whole time period, the Gilded Age. And if you want to kind of take it to an AP level, that's the time period after the Civil War all the way up to the turn of the century, 1900. So where we're studying U.S. history right now is the late 1800s, after the Civil War, and we're going to take it all the way up to about 1900 and a little bit further. So that's what Mark Twain called the Gilded Age, which again means it's not all shiny and glittery. There's some stuff underneath there that's pretty corrupt. The industrial movement is a very rapid time in American history where there's immense growth. You have massive immigration coming in. We've already expanded westward. The railroads have boomed cities by bringing people and product to these cities, and you're going to just see a rapid increase in industry in America. Whereas we've been talking about farming, and now we're going to move from farming, that's called rural, very weird word, to urban, more urban industry where people are making money in a different way. They're not growing crops anymore. They're making what's eventually going to be cars, or SpaceX today, SpaceX making missiles. So Lots of industrialization, all centered around industry, of course. Wages are going to go up, so people are going to make more money than they've ever made before. They're going to have more opportunities because they have that money in their pocket. And if you have money in your pocket to spend, now you're going to see other businesses pop up like drive-in movie theaters or Sonic Drive-In. Not quite there yet. That's the automobile, but you get my point. More money means more spending, and more spending means more businesses popping up. So that's kind of where we're at. One of the words that you will need to know is a word called entrepreneur. I've actually mentioned that word before in another video lecture. The French word entrepreneur means someone who has an invention or a business that they're out to make a great profit. It's their baby. They invented it. They made it. They built it. And they're going to expand it to make great profit for them and their family. We're going to introduce a couple of these people to you today during this industrial movement that we're talking about. But one of them is John D. Rockefeller, J.D. Rockefeller. John D. Rockefeller made billions of money off of investing and starting a company called Standard Oil. And so you know how he made his money. He made his money off of oil. Hey, there's the bell. But oil is, even to this day, still what makes the world go round, even though we're trying to transition to a more smaller footprint in our world today in 2020, but in less carbon emissions. But it is still, even to this day, oil is what makes our world work. Machinery, industry, factories, and things like that. John D. Rockefeller knew that, starting with the train, and then the emergence of like steel, which we talked about in the last video lecture in Pittsburgh, the Steelers, U.S. Steel, Andrew Carnegie's U.S. Steel. So Rockefeller knew that oil produced the energy needed to produce the products that these companies are making. So he made billions off of Standard Oil, the name of his company. One of the key ways that he did that was making his company a monopoly. You do need to know the word monopoly. You've played the game Monopoly before. It's the longest board game in the history of board games. And the number one goal in the board game Monopoly is to what? Say it with me. Own it all. If you own it all, you get to have all the money. And so you would buy properties in the game Monopoly and take out all of your competition and win the game. Well, that's what a monopoly does. Monopoly in business takes out all of its competitors. And so it depends on what area of business that you're in. So let's say you're in a shoe company. So, you know, your business is making athletic shoes. So if you want to become a monopoly in the athletic shoe business with your invention, I'll call my shoe the Boren shoe. It's an awesome shoe. It increases your vertical by 7 inches. You can dunk on everybody. You can run the 40 in 1 second. It's an amazing shoe. However, if I want to monopolize, I need to take out all of my competition. And so I would take out Nike and Adidas and Puma and Reebok and all of the athletic shoe companies that are competing with me to steal my business. If you take them out, you have monopolized. And so John D. Rockefeller, when it came to oil, took out all of the competing oil businesses, and he was great at it. And he was very cutthroat. It was not a very ethical way at times that he took out his competition. The way that he did that, if you take out your competition, that is called horizontal integration. So think of a horizontal line, and you're taking out all of your competition on that horizontal line. So if your business is fast food burgers, and you own McDonald's, well, if you want to horizontally monopolize, horizontally integrate, then you take out horizontally, just look down a street, and you take out Whataburger, and you take out Burger King, and you take out Sonic, and you take out all the competing businesses that make burgers. That's called horizontal monopolization or horizontal integration. That is one way that you can make your business a monopoly. Introducing another guy to you, well, going back to John D. Rockefeller, by the time he died, which he passed away in 1937, he was worth $340 billion. 340, not million, billion dollars. He was much more richer, 4 times richer than Bill Gates would be today. Bill Gates, remember, owns Microsoft. So John D. Rockefeller definitely took out his competition and became a monopoly. Andrew Carnegie, who I've mentioned to you before, he had U.S. Steel. I mentioned that to you, I think, in the last video lecture. Definitely an entrepreneur, definitely a businessman, a money man. He monopolized as well, but he did not take out his competition. Andrew Carnegie monopolized a different way. He monopolized vertically, and this is called vertical monopolization or vertical integration. And the way that what's different about vertical than horizontal? Horizontal, you take out your competition. Vertical, you go after all the things needed to make your product. So if Andrew Carnegie's product is steel, then Andrew Carnegie would become a monopoly by controlling all the things that would be needed to make steel. Or in the case of athletic shoes, if this is my company and this is my shoe, and I want to monopolize vertically, then I would go after controlling all the things needed to make this shoe. That would be cotton, plastic, leather, transportation to transport this shoe to finish line, and all the places that sell shoes. So vertical is a much different way to become a monopoly versus horizontal. Remember, horizontal is taking out your competition. Vertical is owning all the things needed to make your product. Either one of those will get you a lot of money, and either one of those will make you a monopoly in our country. So, but anyway, Andrew Carnegie had U.S. Steel, so he would definitely be an entrepreneur. Another one would be J.P. Morgan. J.P. Morgan was an investor. He made his millions and billions in banking and financing and giving out loans to people. He's still around today. Well, he's not. He's passed away. But his company still lives on. It's J.P. Morgan Chase Bank. We've all heard of Chase Bank before. There's one on the corner 2 miles from here. So there's another entrepreneur who made a lot of money during our time. Another entrepreneur, this guy made an invention, Thomas Edison. You probably have heard of Thomas Edison. He was called the Wizard of Menlo Park in New Jersey. He was called a wizard because some people were scared of him in his invention. And his invention was the incandescent light bulb. If you don't know what an incandescent light bulb is, everybody look up right now. Yep, if it's light in a bulb and you can pop that bulb, it's what his invention is. So it's definitely progressed over the years, but it's still around today. That's what he invented. And you got to remember, back in the time that he invented it, late 1800s, when he first showed it off, flipped the switch, which means you had to have electricity, and it came on, people thought he was a wizard, a witch, something dark. They were scared. They'd pay money to come see his invention, and it was a big deal because now you don't have to pay money for oil lamps, and you don't have to try to light your house with a candle, which does a very poor job. Now you've got something much more brighter that allows people and businesses to stay up much later, and you can run your business at 10 p.m. instead of having to shut your business down at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. when it gets dark, wherever you're at in America. So Thomas Edison is the light bulb. Obviously, that's a big invention. George Westinghouse, you won't really need to know him, but he invented air brakes for trains so that those trains can stop faster, which means they can travel faster. Alexander Graham Bell, you probably might need to know him. Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone, so you can thank him for your cell phones, but not really because the cell phones work off of radio signal, and Alexander Graham Bell's telephone worked off a wire. So just think back to your grandparents who had a phone in their kitchen with that long cord. That's Alexander Graham Bell's invention, and so that's kind of a big deal because it increased communication in our country and brought our country closer together. If I were to ask you a question, what's the invention in your lifetime that's brought our country even more together, or you could argue divided us more, that's beyond the telephone? Anybody know what it is? I'm going to have to go with the internet. So the internet would be right about when you were born. I mean, it's been around before that, but affordable to me and you about 2000 when it became affordable, and then high-speed internet 2008-ish. So that's all your lifetime. At least I hope it is. Let me think. 2008. Yeah. You were born, so that's cool. Other entrepreneurs during the industrial movement, Thaddeus Lowe, a guy named Thaddeus Lowe invented the ice machine. Kind of a big deal for keeping things cold, keeping things refrigerated, and making things last longer. Edwin Drake, a guy named Edwin Drake. I always remember Drake's invention because Drake's last name is D-R-A-K-E, and he invented the drill for oil, D-R. Drake, D-R, drill, D-R. He invents this industrial drill that's able to dig deep to get a natural resource called oil out of the ground. So all these things are possible to make billions off of if you patent your invention. If you guys have watched Shark Tank before, you know what a patent is. The first question all the sharks ask is your invention patented? Because they want to know, can anyone steal it? Because if it's patented, it can't be stolen. So I do want you to kind of know what a patent is. A patent protects something that you can hold, feel, and touch. You invented it. So whoever invented these scissors has a patent. Whoever invented this pen, you can hold it, you can see it, you can touch it. It has a patent. Whoever invented this mouse, touch it, feel it. So patents are for hard things that you can touch and feel, and you invented them. And so just keep that in mind because there's some other patents out, or there's some other things that protect your ideas as well, but not patents. Patents are not ideas. Patents are actual things. So anyway, I'll kind of end it there. That goes into that kind of kicks off our industrial unit, industrialism. I've given you some multi-millionaires and some inventors and some entrepreneurs and how they monopolize their companies through both horizontal and vertical integration, and how I do need to teach you some negative stuff, some of the things that Mark Twain called the Gilded Age, the things underneath that aren't so pretty and they're not so wholesome, that they're actually pretty dark. And so we'll talk about a little bit of that probably in the next video lecture series.